Keith Lee. Hopefully that guy could take this thing into the next millennium. One thing I was wondering as far as the Keith Lee thing, we got Keith Lee, and I was looking at, a guy like Brian Cage over at AEW. Both of these guys getting like a huge rub right now. Are we looking at the beginning of the big guy coming back?
You know what? That's interesting you bring that up. I was thinking the same thing because I was talking to somebody in the reality wrestling circle, and we were talking about Brian Cage, and I was like, Brian Cage reminds me of a guy from the 90s, right? And not in a bad way, but just a guy from the 90s who you see guys in the 90s come out, whether it's, Adam Bomb or the Ultimate Warrior or some of those guys who were just jacked.
You knew it was a real Maine.
It was a Maine. Yeah. An M-A-N-E or M-A-Y-N-E. It was one of the two.
Yeah,
he was a man. And when you see that guy, you're like, oh, he's got to be a professional wrestler, right? That's what that man does. Keith Lee, big dude. We talked about him being in there with Brock, sizing him up, right? We just put a throwback clip on the Reality Wrestling channel, Bobby Lashley back in 2006, just shredded. That when I see those guys, it reminds me of what I saw when I first tuned into professional wrestling. And maybe having the championship, here's the thing, maybe having the championship on a guy like Keith Lee, big guy, that get people to tune in. I mean, maybe that's the reason that, NXT's been winning in these ratings is you see a professional, and I'm not trying to hate on anybody who's a smaller size, but I'm saying you always heard about Vince do his Bruce always told this story at Reality of Wrestling when he was working with us, Bruce Pritchard, and he would say, Vince would look at all the boys when they got off the plane and they were walking through the terminal, walking to baggage claim and trying to see, who would people turn around and point at. They say, "Oh wow, look at that guy!" Right? It was his airport test, and that's how he knew who was going to be a star or not. And I think that having that airport test, having those big guys, it's not a bad thing. I'm in for it. I think we are seeing somewhat of a renaissance.
The reason I say that is because I made the comment just last week about Adam Cole. Adam Cole being a guy that can go out there and work at that next level. I mean, he proved it working with a guy like Keith Lee. But the one thing that shocked me more than anything was the comments, people were making about Adam Cole being, a guy that's not that big, a guy that's, that doesn't have like a whole lot of muscle or anything like that. They don't think Adam Cole could perhaps work at that next level. That's of course, people that's never spent one day inside of a dojo and spent one day inside of a ring. Their opinion, I'm not going to look at it and say, well, they could be right or anything like that. I know how good Adam Cole is. He's going to, get by on his talent and his talent alone. But that is the one thing that perhaps could hinder him is his size. So I'm just wondering, seeing guys like, Keith Lee, seeing guys like, Drew McIntyre, are we seeing a resurgence of the big guy in wrestling again? So me personally, I'm not opposed to it or anything like that. And I'm sure the fans, especially the ladies, going to love seeing, these big oiled up, muscled up big guys with their underwear on. So I'm sure, it's going to work.
That might be why some watch wrestling, but you're right. Think about the people who we're seeing on TV in prominent positions: Keith Lee, Brian Cage. You take it back to Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, even MVP. MVP's got good size. He's got the suit on. You know what I mean? So he's looking good in the suit. You know what I mean? But he's got some size. Yeah. Stop that. I think he looks good. I think there's credence to this. I think there's credence to it. And those are the guys who are in prominent roles right now on television. Braun Strowman, he's the Universal Champion right now. I mean, when you look at some of the top guys, they're of a bigger stature. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's kind of like it's a throwback in a way to how times used to be. And I think that we're now finding a point in the balance because forever it was the big guy. Then it became like, well, the medium-sized guy. Then maybe a little smaller guy. You had the Eddie Guerreros, the Chris Benoits, the Rey Mysterios. Then you fast forward the CM Punks, the Daniel Bryans, kind of more of a smaller stature guy. And then it seems like the business kind of ebbs and flows because between those times, it was the John Cenas, the Rocks, the Steve
Well,
Austins, the T's.
I think the smaller guys, like back in the day, they had to do certain things to actually work at the next level. And I use Rey Mysterio as an example, being the smallest guy, being able to work at that next level. Nowadays, you know, I'm looking at the landscape, and I'm watching how it's kind of like turning a little bit, such as Bobby Lashley with Ricochet or Cedric Alexander. Bobby Lashley's going out here ragtagging these guys now. These smaller guys are realizing, man, I'm gonna have to figure out a different route to get to that next level. What is it going to be? That's the question right there. Hey guys, stick around. We got a whole lot more Hall of Fame for you. Back in a minute.